I think someone asked in the chat if the employer doesn't give feedback, do you ask again? I mean, that's something I think you are obliged to ask. I think it's always important for you to understand feedback, and I think it's also how you maybe present or position your questions. So I think that's probably the way you ask. But of course, sometimes may not be able to get an answer. So I think that's probably where you look back at, your being more resilient and, to Charles' earlier presentation, not giving up, continuing with the process, and then trying to learn and be, improve and go forward with the future interviews,
Cool. 下一个提问的是我们的Sophia， 所以我现在会好，你现在可以问了 ，Sophia 郭。
Hello. Hi.
你好。
Hi. Hello. Hi, Harry. I just got one, maybe a little bit tricky question for you. Because I didn't have a lot of interaction experience with the job agency before. Unfortunately, because in the past, the experience in my job hunting journey and with them was not that positive compared to my direct approach, either from cold calling or from online application. Yeah. But there's one thing I'd like to know. I know in New Zealand market, they've got different sizes and different types of job agencies. For example, in some IT agencies, they may got different consultants like you, in the same team. And maybe the two person targeting on the same roles, for example, project management or IT engineering staff, right? I just wondering if the two persons in the same team recruiting the same roles, are they competing with each other, or actually they share the same resources?
I think that's a really good question, Sophia. And it's a pity that your experience was not very positive with recruitment agents. But I think if you work with, say, one agency, and within the agency there might be one or two consultants, then often within that umbrella they're representing you for that specific role. So within the agency, there should not be any competition or conflict of interest. That's really how the correct process should be. But of course, if you've got maybe agency A and agency B, which are different companies and they're competitors, then they might be that's when it gets a bit complicated when they're both representing you for the same same role and the same company. But I think going back to your earlier point is I always tell my clients and candidates the relationship with the recruitment consultant, as what I said, is it's a long-term relationship. It's almost like the relationship you have with maybe your barber or your hairstylist. If your barber changes salons, obviously you might follow them if they're close by. It's the same thing maybe with the recruitment consultant, because they understand the type of person you are, what's important for you and the type of companies that would appeal. So even for me, this is, my third agency that I've worked in New Zealand, but my clients and candidates have followed me since day one, because for me, the relationship between them is as an individual. It's got nothing to do with the brand that's behind them, So perhaps for you, my guidance is if you don't feel comfortable with that specific agency or the individuals, then there could be others out there within your field, So it's also about you, doing a bit of market research and trying them out as well, So hopefully that kind of addresses your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Just to further a little bit. So basically, for example, when I see a job posted on Seek or Training, and by one single, for example, job agency A, right? And then the specific role is C for role C. And then that role will be allocated for a single specific person within that job agency. You mean that?
It's different because different agents, I think that's a great question. Different agencies have different styles of working, you know, so some of them may be doing a split, or it might be just one consultant working the role. But I think for you to ensure that everything is also quite clear, you know, have all your correspondence to the agency in writing, you know, in email, so that at least then it's all traceable as well, you know. And of course, if the two consultants are, you know, fighting within the same agency, then you may wish to ask yourself if this is the right agency that should be representing you in the market, you know, because you know, they're good agents and they're bad agents in the market as well, you know. So hopefully that kind of answers your question further.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Harry.
You're welcome.
Okay, Sophia, I hope you are happy with the answer from Harry. And so the next one, we're going to pass it to Skylar, because Skylar has been waiting for a long time. Okay. Yeah.
Hi, hello, Harry.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you for your presentation tonight. And it's really helped me a lot because I'm from a accounting background, and I have been working for over 2 years as a commercial company as a company accountant. So I have like few questions to ask. Sorry to take your time. Like the first one is, do you think the visa type will play an important role for a candidate when they're applying for a job?
I mean, that's a very interesting question, and I think it also depends on your individual and the type of visa that you're on, if that makes sense, you know. So I think is if I were to maybe turn it around, is I would say have a plan B to try to understand, you know, if you were to say secure a role with this company, and perhaps, for example, your visa is running out in maybe 6 months or a year, then you may wish to consider the type of role that you take and try to understand if that role will help you to be sponsored further, or for this company to be able to extend your visa. Okay, so what this means is, say if your visa is running out in 9 months time, if you were to take a short-term contract, like a 6-month or 9-month contract, then that obviously may not help you in extending your visa further, you know. So it's always, you know, once again, having a plan, you know, and trying to understand, you know, based on your skills and your opportunities, versus what your working rights are for New Zealand, and trying to think of thinking long-term, really, trying to see how this immediate step will impact and you know, play a part in the long term.
Yeah. So, for example, if there are two candidates and common work visa and the other one is on a resident visa, so will the visa I hold will make me less competitive for a certain position? Because I've applied lots of jobs when I just graduated from the university, and I don't know if you are like, I believe you are quite sure about the accounting firm in New Zealand. Like, not most of the firms are small, in a small size, and yeah, I think it's quite hard for a fresh graduate to get a accounting position in an accounting firm in the beginning years.
I mean, I think for that, you know, firstly, to your earlier question, you know, it's I mean, ultimately, you know, it's from a company or employer's point of view, you know, they often think of their long-term plans as well, you know, and the amount of investment that they need to put, you know. But I think invariably it's also about, you know, many other factors that may be, you know, able to decide if you are successful or not. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, I don't think you should just look at the visa status as the only reason, or the deciding factor. It could be, other areas as well, so it's almost like a case by case basis, but I have, in my experience, working within the professional services environment, my clients, who are the owners of the firm, have also, employed those with working visas or short-term visas as well, So I don't think there's one answer for everything. I think it's unique to the individual as well,
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Skylar. That's a very good question. I think especially for our international students and many of the new immigrants, the visa is a very important issue for us, a big issue. Yeah, that's a good question. So Ian, are you still there?
And just to add on, I think with the visa piece, just to, I think to drill down Roy and everyone is, I think one thing that, a lot of times employers may not wish to go ahead is because they think that the person does not have the local experience, which, I think is a key requirement. So if you have the chance to do some internship or voluntary work in New Zealand, that will somewhat open the doors as well for you, I mean, of course, there's no guarantee, but it still make you look that, a bit more attractive because you can put something on your CV that people recognize and identify with.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. I agree. There are some like pathway towards your objectives, like get you closer to your goals, like you just mentioned, that volunteer and the internship. Yes. So Ian, you're there. Like just before the meeting, you told me you get a question for Harry too. I still came to ask you.
Yeah, I was taking notes. Actually, well, I had lots of questions, but right now, only one question in my mind. I actually want to ask not only Harry, also Chell. You guys didn't say hi to each other.
Hi, Harry.
Yeah, sorry.
Hello.
Go for my question. Yeah, because I saw one article about like a month ago talking about the New Zealand basically online job published a job, only like 20 to 30%. And also I saw it from Chell, your PowerPoint. Is it real? Is it like really like, I don't know, like 80% or 70% under the water? I personally, I don't believe it, because that's how lots of people find job online. And how and why? This is my question. I don't understand it. Yeah, Chell, are you there?
Yeah, yes, I'm still here, but I'll let Harry to start with that, and I will follow Harry. Yeah.
I'm really interesting to hear two of you. What do you think?
I don't know what the exact stats are, but obviously it's very true that a large bulk of the roles are never advertised. Okay, that's just the style of New Zealand, because New Zealand's very relationship driven. It's very network driven. It's more about who you know, which is very much so applicable here. But I think, even putting aside the relationship piece, for me as a recruiter, a core function of my role is always engaging with the business, speaking with the directors, speaking with the owners, speaking with the business, the business owners really. They are the decision makers. So for me as an agent, I already know what are their plans in the very early stage, in terms of recruitment, in terms of growth, in terms of expansion. So obviously by me as the consultant being the middle person, I've got clarity that, okay, maybe in 2 weeks or 2 months or 6 months, they're planning to take a new project or hire a new, which obviously will decide if they need to hire and grow the team, So what this means, and, I know it may sound a little negative, but when you see a role advertised on Seek or TradeMate, it's too late, because they've tried to do whatever they needed to do. They couldn't find people. So they're going to go ahead and explore the market, So, I think that the stats is true, a bulk of the roles are either never advertised or, as a recruitment agency, we get it at the very first instance, because a lot of times I think we may have covered this, is in New Zealand, it's a very SME driven market. You know, a lot of it are business owners or privately owned, you know, companies, and they often may not have a HR function. So for them to, you know, it's not like a large business like Fletcher's or Air New Zealand where they have a HR team. With these SME owners, they just don't have time. They're time poor. You know, they're short of time to go and put an ad and interview 100 people that apply. That's why they rather, you know, outsource it to a consultant who can do all the work for them, you know.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So what do you think, Chow? You agree?
Let me ask you, because I'm a coach, I don't answer questions, remember? So let me ask you back, Yan. So let's say in the future, you are actually running your, imagine you're actually running your own business right now and you need a few, you know, urban designers for your company.
Yeah.
How would you start with that? Where would you be finding people from?
Well, I would say like part of maybe online, part of recommendation. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you actually have someone recommended by your friends or someone you met in the event or someone you just know of through some other channels, and someone completely cold through online application, who would you resonate more and connect with more?
Well, you already give the answer basically.
Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, that's why it's 2080. That's why we don't yeah. It's quite common because relationship really is the key, and trust is also another issue. So if you actually empathize and sympathize the employers and you put yourself into their shoes, they really, first of all, it's really expensive to hire someone in New Zealand. Labor is extremely high for them. It's quite a bit of cost for them. And then as Harry also mentions, New Zealand is very SME driven company. And then once you hire the person, it's very hard to fire them. So the employers are taking a lot of risks, and they, of course, they will have a lot of concern. And if that person comes from someone or some sort of channel that they are comfortable with, for example, someone trustworthy like Harry, they have already got a lot of experience and collaborating together. Of course, they're gonna trust recommendation from Harry a bit more, or someone they kind of knew of, someone they see who are very active on LinkedIn, kind of, you know, showcasing their ability all the time. Or someone you met at a conference that person has done a presentation or that person has done some work with you kind of sort of before. It's very obvious how you're going to choose, and that's why we have 2080 kind of role in the market.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you very much. Wow. Okay, I try to believe it. Anyway. Yeah,
so
but I really like two of you, you know, use different view and different kind of idea to answer my question. I think we probably should like involve everyone join this model, right? Yeah.
I think right now we only because of the limited time, we have already like half an hour past our schedule. So
we just can't stop.
I'd like to invite two more questions from our audience.
Yeah.
So you can ask any question to both of our speakers, like including Harry and Chow. Okay. So I've seen HP, you have already raised up your hand for a long time. So you'll be the next one.
Oh, thank you for that. So Harry mentioned about company culture in his presentation before, and I'm quite interested in that. So could you please explain a little bit more about company culture and where to find out information about that if I don't know anyone in that company? And by company culture, do you mean the company values and beliefs on the website or something else? Thank you.
Great question, HP. Maybe I can start and then Chow, you can add as well. I think the word culture is very subjective, okay? I mean, ultimately, it's whether you believe in the culture and the culture fits you. That's really what it is, you know, because there are places even in New Zealand where, you know, the places internally within the company or the business is very aggressive, you know, it's very dog eat dog within the company. So it's often quite hard, and that's probably quite true, for you to really know what the culture is like until maybe you meet people, when you meet the people on the inside. So I think probably that's where you know, goes back to my point about the research component, you know, trying to read up as much, you know, maybe some of you may have read like with one of the really leading law firms in New Zealand about 2 years ago. They had a lot of things where the interns, were having sex with the partners and stuff like that, So that's probably, if that was accepted, then that maybe showcases the type of culture that's in that firm. And that's a top 4 law firm in New Zealand, So, and of course, all these things, once it hits the media, then it's, public material for you to know and research. So it's not really whether it's a good culture or bad culture, because ultimately it's whether you enjoy working there or whether you align or you believe in their values, So hopefully that kind of gives you an indication. I think a lot of times is do a bit of research, and even I think when you meet the people for the interview, you can kind of gauge and get a good feel, because remember, it's not only about them interviewing you, it's also about you interviewing them. So it's a two-way thing. Okay.
Cool. Thank you very much. So that's making choices from both sides, not just the company choosing us, but we are choosing the company as well.
100%. You need to feel like you have the confidence to turn a role down, right? Because say there was an instance before with one of my candidates. She went for an interview for a role, and there were 2 partners of the firm interviewing her at the same time, right? And within the 2 partners, one of the partner was quite rude to the colleague, in front of her. So if partner to partner, they're quite rude, one party is rude to the other, that obviously gave her the idea that, how would she be treated once she joined the company, and she turned the role down, which was right for her.
Yeah, that's something to be aware of. Thank you very much.
100%.
Absolutely. I totally agree with what Harry has just said. And then just adding a little bit on that, because during the interview, sometimes it could be quite a process. Like you could have 1, 2, 3 times of interactions with the HR manager or with the hiring manager. And then during the process, if you're actually sensitive enough, you can sense a lot of little hints and subtle cues from the hiring manager. I used to have that kind of experience. I just found the hiring manager was kind of funny and interesting throughout the whole process, and how she talks to me and how she talks to a colleague. There are some subtle cues and hints. And then later on, what actually kind of really turned me down was that I gave her the name of my referees. And then I told her that my referees actually overseas in China, and then there's a time difference and stuff like that. And she still didn't care and rang the referee like 3-4 a.m. in the morning when China time. So that's telling you a lot about the hiring manager. And then after that, after she talked to my referee, and then my referee actually told me that hiring manager's been quite rude to him. So that was kind of a big warning for me, like, oh, okay, I'm not actually quite sure whether I want to work for this kind of leader. Yeah, so just be aware and be really subtle and be confident and have that confidence to actually understand that this is a two-way choice.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, I think everyone is very keen to ask many questions, and right now I got a lot of questions so far. So I think probably I'm going to extend our question from 1 to 3 more. Okay, so you have 3 more questions. You can ask either Chao or Harry. Okay, so I got a question here. You can raise up a hand, or I saw like this question is from C to Harry. Okay, so C got a question about overqualified, and this is not a common reason to reject a candidate in China, as Chinese companies are actually looking for the best or most experienced talents for skilled roles. But in New Zealand, I have heard about it a lot, about the overqualified. So what do you think about this?
That's a tough one, and I mean, I think there's some truth to that, I think, that's really maybe a bit of the reality, because if you mentioned or remember in my presentation, one of the key things that New Zealand really focuses on is the culture fit, as well as the loyalty piece. A common perception here from a Kiwi perspective is they they want to hire people that are not too overqualified. They're afraid that the person would, outgrow the role. They might get bored, and bringing me back to the loyalty or the tenure question, they're concerned that the person will not stay too long in the role. So I think, that's probably a question you need to ask yourself, meaning, how much skills that you've done in overseas that you wish to share in your CV, as well as now that you're in the New Zealand market, if you're looking to stay long term, where do you wish to pitch and, type of roles that you wish to focus on? Because it's also about trying to find a compromise between, taking a role that is, that you enjoy, but also maybe, not taking a role that you're not ready for. So for example, maybe if you were a CFO in China, but then if you try and take a CFO role here, it might be a little hard because, you may not understand the local way of managing people, the leadership piece, the culture piece. So that's probably where the companies are thinking about. So it's once again working out a plan to try and tackle a role that is maybe, close to what you've done, but may not be too super adventurous at this stage, but at the same time, giving you a bit more room to grow and, move towards that place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so true. I think lots of Harry just said, lots of elements really similar as your idea, Chell, right? Actually, it's all the same. I mean,
what do you mean by it's all the same?
Not really all the same, but lots of like, for example, like, you have to, basically what I understand, you have to know yourself first, blah, blah. I think from your side, it can, also cover all of these questions. It's just a sort of similar
from different angles.
Exactly,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. Probably if I were to say, I'm not sure whether this is something that C is going through at the moment, but still, if I actually fail the interview, I'll probably contact that person saying, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity and understand that you mentioned I'm overqualified. I will probably dig a bit deeper to understand. So how does me being overqualified actually bother you? Like, what are your concerns? Just trying to be really sympathize and to understand what are the concerns of the other from the other side, and maybe there's something that actually would tell you, and then you can actually resolve it and kind of resolve their concerns and the conversation. Then in that case, you are restarting the conversation from there. You're not trying to convince them, saying, "Oh no, you're wrong. Like I can actually do this, blah blah." Don't do that. But really trying to understand the other person's concern, and that again. In coaching, we say there's always no failure, but always opportunity to learn. So once you understand what are the concerns of the other people, then as Harry said, you might change your strategy for the next time, or you might actually explain like how you deal with those common concerns in your next interview. So you can actually learn and grow out from there.
Yeah, I agree. It's very costly for the business to employ and train a new employee. Yeah, so like of course it's their concern about the stability and the loyalty. If they hire you, are you going to be able to work for them like from a long-term perspective, or you're going to be very easily get bored? So right now here I got a question for both of you, and the question is from Alice. So the question is for Harry and Chow, and she also wanted to know how optimistic the job market looks in the next half year, especially in marketing area. So, like given the current virus crisis, what do you think about the future of the job market?
Harry, what do you think?
Ladies first.
Okay, Chow,
I really like to hear your insights first.
Sure. I mean, I think, obviously we need to be very mindful and aware about the whole Corona and COVID situation, and how it's impacted not only New Zealand, but also globally, But having said that, as a recruiter for me, I have the, first touch points with the businesses, I understand who's recruiting, who has frozen, I think if we can maybe be aware that, things are going to be challenging, but then try to turn that into an opportunity in the sense that understanding, for majority of companies or roles. So for example, things like accounting, you know, and even to some degree, things like business administration, support staff, and even marketing to a certain degree, you know, even though I'm not a marketing expert per se, but, you know, I speak to a lot of my colleagues who do recruit for marketing, and they are still quite busy, you know. It's about maybe, once again, tackling and understanding what industries would be in growth mode, you know. So obviously, maybe you may not wish to apply for a marketing role with Air New Zealand, for example, you know, because obviously the aviation and travel industry has, you know, taken a massive hit. But, you know, things like FMCG, manufacturing, or even like the supermarket chains like Food Staff and Progressive, they're all still very much in growth mode, you know. And then for core functions like accounting, for example, payroll is a function that every business needs to pay its employees accurately and on time. So every company will still need a payroll officer, you know, for example. So there'll still be opportunities in certain, you know, spots more than others. So it's once again about maybe coming to working out a plan and trying to understand maybe a short-term role in this specific area may, you know, provide some sort of long-term growth in other areas once, especially the market rebounds.
Lovely, thank you, Harry. Sorry, from my perspective, again, probably I'm going to turn the question back to Alice again. I'll probably be curious, what makes you want to ask this question? Like, are you saying if it's going really well, then I'm going to stay in marketing, otherwise I'm going to change to something else? Like, what's the purpose of asking this question? If you are kind of, I'm just guessing here, I might be completely wrong. If you're actually concerned about, you know, if that industry is going down, but my skill set is in marketing, and you still love marketing and still want to stay on the line, then probably, I think there are going to be some changes in marketing for sure. First of all, it's about the budget. Probably some company, they will cut the budget drastically, as Harry says, some, you know, industry like aviation, stuff like that. But at the same time, how can you actually prepare yourself to stand out during this kind of challenging time? Let's say, I'm just giving examples. Probably before, there were a lot of marketing budget was spending on like direct marketing or like billboards and stuff like that. But now, because they don't have that much of budget, so how can they actually spend that money smartly? Probably they will turn to digital marketing a bit more, you know, that's more cost effective. And then in that sense, is your skill set ready to actually put you in the competitive advantage yet? So this will be the things I will actually unpack with you and then research together with you and kind of look into that a bit deeper. So there are always opportunities that people they're always, you don't need that many opportunities. You just need one. You just need one. So that's a message I keep telling a lot of the candidates. Regardless what's happening externally, as long as you know who you are and where you want to go, it doesn't matter. You always find a way to actually build your career and build your pathway to there. So of course, you know, you have to be smart about it. I'm not saying that, you know, completely ditch the outside world and don't look at it. I'm not saying that, but really it starts from within. Like, where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And then from there, we can build a plan, and with a professional support like Harry and other HR managers or coaches.
Great. Okay, so right now we have the last question. So who would like to ask the last one? All right, I think we get a question here. If there's no one, raise up your hand. We got a question here. So Harry, thank you for a brilliant presentation. Could you give more insights about how we can do self-improvement to get promoted as an employee? How to, you know, like add value to yourself? How to be more employable? What do you think?
Interesting question. I think I would still go back to my presentation about, I think within a business in New Zealand, key things that they work on is the culture fit and the technical, You know, I think that's the key thing that a lot of businesses place a lot of emphasis on, more so on the culture fit. You know, like for example, I've seen in my experience working in New Zealand where it's all about, you know, the relationships that you have with your colleagues and with the managers and the people below you. You know, that I think is something that a lot of businesses value more so than, say, if I were to compare to Asia Pacific markets that I've worked in, where it's only been on technical and hard skills. I think in New Zealand, it's about the soft skills, the communication skills, the way you interact, you know, like for some of you may work, you know, in New Zealand, you'll see that Friday is a big thing for Friday drinks, you know, things surrounding, you know, things like that, which I think are big things, you know, because I've seen in the past where I've worked, some of the Asian, you know, colleagues don't tend to attend the Friday drinks, you know, and they are the ones that are just, you know, put in the corner, you know. So it's things like that, you know. It's about being true to yourself, being true to your culture and your background, but also trying to integrate and make small adjustments as well. So I'd say it's a combination of many different factors, but the soft skills, the culture fit, the communication ability is top of the list.
Great, excellent. So Chao, do you have any like thoughts, ideas that you would like to share?
Awesome. I'd love to share about this one. Because I just recently coached a client who's kind of having the same questions, same concerns, that she was kind of really wanted to get a promotion and pay rise, but she just really couldn't get it. And I think one big thing you have to understand is there are two parts of self-improvement. One is how do you want to improve yourself so you can get to your own personal goal, like your career goal, as Harry mentioned at the end. The other side is how does the company want you to grow? Fits the demands of the company in a sense. So it's a really fine balance in between how you actually serve your own needs while serving the company's needs. So when you're talking about self-improvement, I love how you're being so proactive and thinking about it. So that's great, wonderful. That means you have a lot of self-awareness. But at the same time, I think it's really, if your purpose is really to get a pay rise or get a promotion, be aware about what does the company really want you to do and how does the company, what kind of value you can add to the company. So in that sense, probably it will be sensible to start talking to your manager, having a bit more, you know, one-on-one and getting some more targeted feedbacks. It's really hard to see yourself, as I just mentioned. We all have blind points that we can't see on ourselves. But when the other person works with you, especially your direct manager, they can see very clearly about what needs to be improved on you. And then at that time, probably, you know, that's great that you actually work out a personal development plan with your manager, and then you identify your skill set or knowledge gap, and then wonderful, you can ask for money to apply for training or whatever, you know. And in that sense, you're kind of utilizing the opportunity to connect with your manager and really sympathize your manager, having that sympathy and empathy, really try to understand, hey manager, how can I better support you? Tell me, you know, I really want to improve myself. And in that sense, your manager will probably be quite happy about it as well. Oh, this person really wants to support me, and let me support that person and give her or him some more training and stuff around that. So really try to turn that relationship into a collaborative relationship and having that serving mindset, which we talked before in terms of networking, but also when you're at work, always try to add value and be curious. Like curiosity is really such a beautiful thing. When you're curious about what's going on in my manager's mind, like what is he or she thinking about? How can I actually help him or her to resolve some problems? And if you're able to do that, just put yourself into your manager's mind. I think, you know, we'll be all very naturally and happily to give that person a promotion.
Well, yeah, that's a very comprehensive and interesting question. And thank you, Harry and Chao, for your excellent answer for that and share your thoughts and ideas. And I got one last question for Harry. And one of our audience, I think most of the audience, they want to know if they can get the slides you share with us today. Sure. It is okay.
No problem. That should be fine.
Sweet. Thank you. Thank you for all of them. Okay. So thank you, our awesome audience, for your great questions. And thank you, Harry. And thank you, Chao, for your excellent sharing. So
Yeah.
Shall we just stop here today? Yeah, what do you think?
No, I have one more question. I asked.
Right, okay.
Sorry, just add one. Very simple
Okay.
one, very short one. I already asked Harry, so I want to ask Cho, are you married?
Huh? Sorry, I don't answer this kind of private questions in public.
Okay. So that's a question mark.
Nice try though.
Show us a finger, okay? Just show us a finger.
Nice try, Yan.
Right, all right.
Okay, thank you very much. OK， 我就讲回中文了啊。OK， 我们时间也差不多了。那么我想特别真诚的感谢两位今天的嘉宾。你看时间完全不够用，我们超了1个小时了已经。OK， 真诚的感谢吧，只能说感谢，因为真的这个分享非常的精彩，而且我觉得就是2个 level 吧，一个可能更多的 detail， 一个可能是在一个 strategic 的 level 去给大家做了很多一个概念性的理清概念的一个动作。那我觉得在这之后，大家愿意的话，可以跟这2位嘉宾有更多的、更深层的一个交流。我觉得真的会有很大的帮助，帮我们去理清思路。你觉得呢 ，Roy？
是的，我相信今天在线的朋友多少都获得了一些对自身非常有用的信息。这个也是其实我们这次分享会的目的，希望能够或多或少帮助到大家。对。
我想讲1、2句话，在走之前，我觉得我应该是今天在场的每一位观众 ，like everyone who's actually present tonight, you should give yourself a big round of applause because it's a Saturday night, and then you're taking like this 2-3 hours to actually seriously consider about your future, about your career planning. So you are already stand out, amongst the market. So well done, everybody.
That's an excellent proposal. Yes.
Well done, everybody.
Right.
OK. So 在这里我还想说一点，就是因为这次分享会是我们 China Pride NZ 第一次组织线上的分享活动，所以可能还有很多就是组织啊或者筹划不够完善的地方、不够成熟的地方，请大家见谅。我们呢也会继续的努力。同时呢，今年 China Pride NZ 我们也在持续的筹划更多的线上，甚至是一些线下的活动。如果条件允许的话，到时候2位嘉宾如果有时间，我们可以面对面的跟大家聊一聊。希望你们能够再次接受我们的邀请，好吧？也希望所有的今天参加我们活动的朋友们持续的关注我们，谢谢。